I have a request that then the next one just has to be a montage of Anakin's signature behind the back lightsaber spin.
Oh,
just over and over and over again.
The whole theme. Yep. Sure. You got it.
Skytalker, presented by Bounding into Comics.
All right, now I'm in a lightsaber mood. All those twirls. Look at these guys. Look at them go.
Oh, girls.
Why don't they fight like this in the sequels? All right. This tweet is all over my timeline. I don't know if Cider can actually like show this tweet, but like everybody is just like either dunking on this video. How come some Star Wars fans on YouTube can choreograph better lightsaber duels than whenever Disney has going on? This is nonsense. Let's roll that video again and really ask if we would like to see this in a movie.
I mean,
what
it's
devoid.
I think it's awesome that you can do this in high school now. I wish
you didn't
our
do this
video
in
program in high school. There's no way we could actually like do that. Like they didn't have. Although I'm guessing they're using like the ones that you buy for like $2,000.
Yeah, you're Star Wars virgin, man. Those are FX like lightsabers lit up. There's no special effects. No special effects at all. So
I thought they were like way flimsier though, and that you couldn't handle hitting them.
It depends. That depends on how much.
My brother-in-law has one, and I was like afraid to touch it.
So in high school, all I did with my friends was make fan films and choreograph lightsaber battles and try to learn every single move from Palpatine's office when he takes out the Jedi who are trying to arrest him to, the fight on Mustafar. Kind of the peak of Nick Gillard flourish lightsaber fighting. And look, I get that like this is cool stuff. If two guys were doing this at a Comic-Con, I would be very interested. I'd be watching that stuff. It's cool. It's live.
A dance. You'd have it up on your live thingy.
Yeah.
Stories. Instagram.
I would.
Sure.
But this is not. You don't want this in a movie. This is completely devoid of any sort of interesting physicality. It's not real.
You just didn't see all the dramatics leading up to this fight. It really has some emotional heft to it, Ken.
He fucked his mom. Is that is that what happened?
They took it outside.
Yeah.
I feel like people. I think it's funny though because like, I think that we all got spoiled with like the insanity of the prequels, but with the lightsaber fights in those, and then I don't really remember anything from the sequel trilogy, but part of it's
I think we're gonna jog your memory here in just a minute with something else from the prequels, but just saying hello to everybody here joining the stream. You're watching Skytalker on Bounding into Comics. I am your host, Stephen Kent. Super excited to be with you. I'm joined by my friend, colleague, nemesis, sparring partner, Battaglia. Of Free the People, and also a columnist now at Bounding into Comics, doing a really cool a column called The Drawing Board, right?
Yeah, and author of the book House on Fire, which you can buy at your favorite comic book shop or Amazon. So
why should people buy it? Why?
Well, Ken, you really liked it. You gave me a nice blurb for it. It's a
I did, didn't I?
it's an adult comic for adults. So it was an emotional reckoning with the lockdowns and COVID and all that. So I feel like if you want something to depress you, you should.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
you do depress me sometimes.
That's the goal.
Yeah. We're gonna uplift you today, whether you like it or not. Somehow we're gonna have some fun talking Star Wars. This stream is every Thursday. We're gonna be aiming for 9:30 p.m. Eastern every single week. We will dunk on what requires dunking. We will have some fun loving on some of Star Wars that will always be great. That's what Skytalker is all about. So next here, a fun item before we get to the controversy that you could watch on just about every Star Wars or geek channel in the universe here today and yesterday. But first, let's have some more fun. This video, a Star Wars fan animation, is a redoing of the Battle of the Heroes on Mustafar, Star Wars Episode 3, but done in the style of the Clone Wars. Incredible. We're not going to watch all of this. We're going to hop through it a little bit. Just drop us in at like 2 or 3 minutes in and let's watch it. Yeah.
When you shared this, I thought someone reimagined it, and then as I was watching, I was like, "Oh wait, this is actually pretty 1-to-1."
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1. They copy. I mean, they were able to copy the physicality, the moves that Obi-Wan and Anakin, Hayden Christensen, and Ewan McGregor are pulling off, while also filling in the blanks. So Yoda versus Palpatine is stripped out of this, so they're not doing the cutting. They're not doing the cutting back and forth. So they've got kind of filler added in to keep moving Anakin and Obi-Wan through the Mustafar base. Let's take a look at some of this. Backflip.
Yeah. I wonder, do you know if these guys also got jobs afterwards? They made this?
Yeah, I mean, they should. I mean, this is incredible work. And we can just jump halfway through and then take a look at some of the close-ups on their faces. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts, actually. Let's see the punch to the face, the balancing act. I mean, perfectly captured the work of the Clone Wars. Oh, here's the punch to the face. This is
there you go.
This is the peak of the Mustafar battle. Like, again, choreography that makes this battle work. There's a lot of beautiful flourish that goes on in the Gallard choreography of Episode 3, Episode 2. But what makes real fights work is that they have stakes, that people sock each other in the face, that they choke each other if they get an opportunity. They do drop kicks. You know, this battle's real. I hate it when people choreograph a battle with their FX lightsabers and they're like, why can't Star Wars do this? Because they're making.
But aesthetically, this one was really neat. I love the way that he used the colors with the lightsabers and the red of the lava and all that stuff. This was
how do you do this? I mean,
he shot it all on a green screen. I think
I don't understand this stuff. What do you mean shot this on a green screen? It's animated.
Oh no, but I'm saying like the real one in the real movie.
I was like, what? I'm so confused.
I wonder but with the animation, I wonder if they had the assets from like the Clone Wars and were able to just take the models.
Yeah, I mean, how would that even,
gentlemen? There's an AI that will analyze motion on film. Any type of film you send it, like you walking on the beach, it'll do motion capture on anything that's moving. And so likely he was able to feed in the motion capture, the video itself. Then the CGI was strapped on top.
Very cool. Very informative. Yeah, and in Clone Wars, you know, for context, I mean, after they added the most recent season under Disney leadership and Dave Filoni, the Clone Wars goes all the way up to Order 66 and the Fall of the Jedi Order. That's like when the show ends. And so now if you really just want to keep having fun, like you can watch all the way to the end of the Clone Wars and then hop and then hop onto YouTube and watch this just to close it out, because this not only goes through the whole battle, it also goes to Padme giving birth and Darth Vader. Yes, you get to.
Did they cut the no down at the end?
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, I think they cut it out entirely. But yeah, just to get a final look at when he chops his leg off. You can go a little bit further than that, and
show me.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, there we go. That's it. The high ground. Oh,
I have a soft spot for the prequels.
You should
actually, and you and I talking about it earlier was reminding me that I like that when they came out, it was before I was a jaded old man, like well before. Yeah. Even the Phantom Menace.
That's the only you that I've ever known.
I know. But I realized I was 11 when it came out.
Don't try it. Oh, and there go his legs. Wow. That's such a punk way to go out. I know, like, apparently the story has something to do with Hayden Christensen and Nick Gillard, and like literally, like, Hayden Christensen was like climbing up a hill like on their way to lunch or something while they were shooting the movie, and he fell down going up the hill. And then Nick Gillard wanted to like change the ending of the choreography to like kind of capture that hubris of like climbing a hill that you shouldn't climb. And it like made it into the movie. I think it captures the total hubris of a person who's drunk on the dark side to like think that you could pull that off and not get hacked to pieces. But I just always thought it was, I don't know. It makes its point, but I don't like it.
I don't know. I like I like this one through and through. I thought, at least when I first saw it, and and something that we were talking about earlier that I thought had me like just thinking more about Star Wars as a property.
Yeah,
which was that so much of my opinions of it and the way that I view them is so linked to like when I saw them initially, where I was, probably 8 years old when I saw the original trilogy. Yeah. And then the prequels came out when I was, 11. And so like, even at 11, Jar Jar Binks didn't like irk me because I was 11, and who cares, because there were, pod racers, that was a neat scene. And then the Duel of the Fates lightsaber thing at the end, like that was mind blowing, and people, I can appreciate that.
Well, it was, and this is something that I talk about often with Star Wars commentary of all kinds, is that I get really frustrated when Star Wars fans of our age kind of still, they want to like talk about things with adult logic all the time when they experience these things without the safety blanket and the jaded part of understanding the way that the real world works. And then you go back and you watch these movies and you're like, oh, this is kind of goofy. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Plot hole, plot hole, plot hole. Yeah, no crap. Like that, like this stuff is full of it. But when you're a kid, you're just enraptured. Your jaw is hanging watching this stuff happen.
This is the coolest scene too. You finally get the real hero of the series. Darth Vader is born.
Yeah. That's what everybody wanted. That's what everybody wanted this. And this video, by the way, is by the channel called Hello There. Incredible work. Just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about something fun, because this is a big part of what Star Wars fandom is about. And you and I are going to disagree on this tonight, Matt, because we have a couple of things to discuss that have to do with fandom and creation. So just a preview of what we're going to discuss tonight. This is the end of fun time. Now it gets to controversy. So we're gonna transition over to talking about kind of the drama surrounding the Rey movie and the director of the Rey movie, anointed by Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. I'm gonna butcher her name unintentionally a couple of times. A lot worth discussing here about the politics of Disney and where Star Wars is going. And then we're going to go back to creation and what fans should and should not create as part of, the engaging in the Star Wars culture. We're going to talk about Star Wars theory and revisit a little bit of a flap last week where Star Wars theory announced that he was going to be doing a Mark Hamill kind of deep fake Luke Skywalker series of videos for his channel. And I think we're going to have a mixed series of opinions. We're also going to have a special guest join the channel and join the show to talk about the Star Wars theory subject. But first, let's start with Obaid-Chinoy of the REY movie. So
this was the angriest article I've ever seen you write.
I did it. I got mad.
You finally did it. Congratulations. I've been trying to drag you down to the mud for so long, and I'm not even that angry. It's just, to me, I don't know why you would hire her to make what is ostensibly an action movie. And it's these weird director choices that you set the director up for failure, and then you set your movie up for failure too. And that's always it seems odd to me.
Yeah, it is strange. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can hear you. You're not moving anymore.
Okay,
the video.
Cool. Oh, there we go. Now we're moving again. Yeah, no, it does. I mean, these kind of choices do set people up for failure. But I think just for context, Obaid-Chinoy, she's a documentary filmmaker, Pakistani Canadian, Pakistan born, and lives in Canada. Focuses a lot of her documentary films on oppression in the Middle East, which
great subject.
It's a great subject. It's a complete violation of the principles of freedom. And we don't like that crap. Her movies and her work are strictly about really like the feminist experience in the Middle East, which is up against Islamism, which, when we're talking about Islam, we're talking about, woman spoke too loudly against her husband and then gets stoned to death or goes outside of her home without accompaniment and then is subject to an honor killing. So this is like the world that she's coming from, that she's reporting on. Okay.
Which mind you, like Iran has a huge film culture, and a lot of it is, if you dig into Iranian films, which you and I have at some at that Anthem Film Festival that we've been to a number of times, they show a lot of Iranian pictures, and they do a lot of important things, and they're subverting that culture there, and that's great. But when you try to overlay that onto what is ostensibly an American product, it doesn't really, I don't think those two sort of political viewpoints line up, because that level of oppression just doesn't exist in the West.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. And people also take offense to that notion, right? Like men and women in the West have all sorts of disagreements about the way things should be, power dynamics and all that kind of stuff. But when, you kind of come to making a Star Wars movie and there's any sort of idea that you're going to be bringing that kind of perspective to our politics and gender discussions in the West, granted, Star Wars is a global franchise, people are going to be a little bit concerned, miffed, worried. Now, I'm gonna clash here with Eccentric Banana in the comments. I appreciate you watching. It's awesome to have people here and joining the discussion. But bringing oppression to Star Wars, well, the prequels were rooted in being about slavery. Anakin coming up in slavery and having to get out of that situation, and then carrying that chip on his shoulder all the way to the dark side.
Wasn't the whole the Empire?
Injustice is part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But what kind of injustice does she want to bring to Rey's storyline? We don't know. That's also not anything that she has said. So I want to go kind of back to the column here to this interview that she did with CNN that just kind of ticked everybody off. And it ticked me off too. Cause the more I thought about it, the more I was pissed, because she goes on CNN just for a very quick news hit and is asked this very just NPC kind of question about you're the first woman to helm and direct a Star Wars movie. How does that make you feel? What are you excited about? And it's oh my God, journalists just ask these kind of questions in their sleep. Ask a real question. And she gives, I think, a response, which is also similarly NPC in nature, which was not to talk about her love of Star Wars and her excitement to make a Star Wars movie. I don't even know that this woman is a fan.
Probably not.
Now, Tony Gilroy seemed like he was not a huge Star Wars fan either. I think he said that a couple of times, but he made a pretty cool show in Andor. But Chinoy, like, what Star Wars fans want to hear is that you get it, that you respect what you are stepping into, that you understand the gravity a little bit of what you're doing. And when you're asked, like, what are you excited about? You just go, it's 2024. It's about time a woman directed Star Wars. Well, we have had that. Star Wars is being has been charted, first of all, at the very, very top by Kathleen Kennedy now since 2015 or whatever, whenever she took over. We've had a number of incredible lady directors on the Star Wars series and animated shows. It's egomania. It's like all about like, I'm significant. I'm a glass ceiling breaker. I'm some kind of hero. I don't like that. I really don't like that kind of approach to, I got the dream job opportunity of a lifetime.
Well, I don't think it is her dream job. I think it's a dream paycheck, probably. I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like CNN wants that answer that she gave them anyways. And
well, that's how this works. You ask the kind of canned question about the significance of your hire, and you get the canned answer. But I don't know. This is kind of where my more conservative. I'm a libertarian by nature, but this is where like my conservative isms come out, and I'm like, she was like a co-presenter at the World Economic Forum.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah, that's bad.
She's like a World Economic Forum show host, and now she's gonna be doing Star Wars. It's just, well, I don't understand. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. When you have, first of all, the Star Wars series, where they talked about they were like piloting a bunch of directors to tell Star Wars stories in episodic format for Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Mandalorian, test new talent, bring them into the universe. And then they just kind of like come out of nowhere with the World Economic Forum documentarian to do the Rey movie, which is going to be a really heavy burden. Look, like Star Wars
wants
fans,
this movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I know that there are sequel fans. We have one in the waiting room who's gonna join us and talk a little bit about this, and it's gonna be fun. There are people who like Rey. There are people who like the sequels, but I gotta tell you, I've been a Star Wars fan of a long time. It's not very present out in the world. But then again, I also have a picture with like 3 Rey cosplayers at the last Comic-Con I went to. So what the hell do I know?
Well, can I have another point with these directors though? Is that one of the oddest choices that I think that they've done is that they bring in people who are known for having a level of style. So one of the most frustrating things that I attempted to watch was the Boba Fett show, which was a steaming pile of shit. And Robert Rodriguez directed a lot of that show. I love Robert Rodriguez's movies. And
Sin City, what were those movies?
He did the Sin City ones. He did Desperado. He did Once Upon a Time in Mexico. He did Mariachi. He also did a bunch of he did the Spy Kids movies, which space. But like none of his style comes through in that show, because I think that the way that all of this stuff is made is so it's such like an assembly line factory thing. And then they're using that those LED screens that I can't remember what they're called, but they're shooting them in that stage where the whole thing is a screen.
Oh yeah, the orb. I love.
Yeah, and I feel like that limits the amount of shot. Like I feel like that limits some amount of like creativity in the actual making of the show or the movie or whatever.
Really, like, isn't it an improvement from the green screen era of like Anakin and Obi-Wan like doing all their scenes on green?
Yeah, but they're spending so many millions of dollars on these shows. You'd think that they'd make some sets and for some of these pieces, and they just always feel very flat, I feel like. And I just thought that it was odd that they hire Rodriguez and then they don't really, you don't get any of Rodriguez out of that show. I didn't think.
No, that's interesting. I mean,
And
Star Wars is, it can be a little bit of an oppressive IP. Like, again, you kind of have to fit into certain molds. And there's really only so much you can bring to it.
yeah. And well, and this is and this leads to the sort of the only thing the Oba, whatever her name is, can bring to this, right, is this sort of, I'm the first Pakistani woman to direct a Star Wars movie, where like it's what Marvel experienced with that Eternals movie, where they hire a director who doesn't make movies that are even remotely close to what they're trying to make. And I believe that movie fell very flat on its face because it just wasn't interesting. There was no style to it because the way her stylistic ticks don't line up with the styles that I think are required to make these kinds of broad entertainment movies work.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm just
you
over,
look
I'm
at
just over here wanting Bryce Dallas Howard to do a Star Wars movie.
who like her dad is probably more like a journeyman director and can kind of just get the job done and do it pretty well. Like, no one would accuse Ron Howard of being a stylist, but he's a very competent, capable director, and that's why Solo was a decent movie for what it was. I mean, he took what was given to him and he made it at least competently. And like, same with Tony Gilroy, who did like Michael Clayton, which is a really good movie, but he's also that seems to be a very competent director. You can't tell me that someone from documentary filmmaking into, hi, here's multi-millions of dollars, please make this Rey movie work. That's
please make this work.
Like,
yeah. And honestly, here's another thing that I feel about this. I will not believe that this movie exists till there's a trailer. The amount of Star Wars movies that enter pre-production, enter the rumor mill phase, enter this phase, like this phase of movie making, where all we're doing is talking about it and getting.
Hey, Rebel Moon came out. Okay, yeah. Rebel Moon is out.
I don't believe yet that this thing is even going to happen. Rogue Squadron movie,
which would have been cool.
So I'm just gonna I always want to kind of pump the brakes just a little bit on this stuff, and save the real rage for when stuff actually goes off the rails. But let's actually address the clip here, where Obaid-Chinoy is on stage in 2015 with Jon Stewart. Let's watch this.
What is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure? And is that a part of the calculation of your art as well? And what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable. Not you, just not you. Not you.
Point taken. Point taken.
That's an ally.
It is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude.
Okay, so pause it. So the first thing that needs to be said, I've said this on Twitter a couple of times, and you can find me over at Stephen Connects talking about this, is from 2015. She's promoting one of her documentaries about honor killings and murder of women in Pakistan. So when she's being asked this question and she's talking about, I love making men uncomfortable, this is what she is responding to. But also we need to also recognize that when this is a thing that motivates somebody, that this is a thing that a person delights in, they're not going to check it at the door. Her experience doing, I think, virtuous and good documentaries in the Middle East, when you bring that to Star Wars and you bring it to this context, it's not like it's just going to vanish. That's still going to be the thing that she enjoys. So not to say both sides here talking about this subject are right, but yeah, like the video is out of context, but also it says something true. And also what she goes on to say, which is just kind of bizarre to me, where she goes, that we just kind of assert ourselves, make ourselves known, like look at you and make you uncomfortable, and you will realize that you are in the wrong. I'm butchering her paraphrase already. But just like that, you will realize that you need to change your ways. It's just like this finger wagging mom lecture kind of stuff that I completely understand why people watching this are just like, this is not like a way that you want to approach making a movie for the American masses.
However, though, I have a movie pitch for you. Can I pitch it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Tusken Raiders, oppressive civilization, the kids, they're like chained up to like animals and stuff or whatever. Rey discovers the oppression of the Tusken Raiders. Rey takes up her, well, I guess he's not related to her, but Rey takes up where Anakin left off and starts, it's like John Wick, but with Tusken Raiders and Rey. Is that kind of fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a really great story about some of the barbaric practices of an Aboriginal culture, and a crusader coming to the native lands and freeing the children. Yeah, that would go over really well, I think, and
that would work.
Everybody wins. Why don't we just make Rey a crusading figure? Why don't we do
not?
That? Yeah.
I feel like though they just bungled all those characters so much because the casting was good. It's not like Indiana Jones where they casted Phoebe Waller-Bridges and like the casting completely sank that movie. You could maybe have cast someone else in that role and they would have made that character a little bit more likable, and the movie maybe would have been more successful with that. Whereas I do feel like the sequel trilogy, the casting was all pretty good. It just the writing and the fact that the movies didn't make any sense together was really the bigger letdown.
Daisy Ridley's a great actress. We've given her plenty of like positive coverage at Bounding Into Comics for movies that she's done that are good. Good movies. I mean, God, poor Natalie Portman. Like I always watch her in the prequels, episode 1, 2, and 3. She just could not act either at that point in her career or in those movies. There was only so much that you could do with the Padme script, and there was not one part of her performance that was good, save her being attacked and then dying at the end of episode 3. Like that's when she was actually able to shine, kind of like how Hayden Christensen was able to shine in his rage. Padme and Natalie Portman was really at her best when she was like begging for him to stop, right? Like that was when everything finally was interesting for their performances. But
I do feel like George Lucas as a director is less interested in performances than especially with the prequels, than he was with sort of the technical aspects of it. And I think that was probably one of the, if I remember the time correctly, that was one of the first movies where they were sort of all acting against sort of, green screens and stuff. And so there wasn't really much to react to. And I think that probably, there were a lot of factors, script being one, and then the actual like shooting of it.
Yeah.
Probably that's why a lot of people felt flat in there. Because like Hayden Christensen's proven himself to be, not a bad actor since then. And his appearances in the new shows have been worth watching. But
and I just I want to point to Script Trooper in the comments. He's that there's another interview doing the rounds. Yeah, there's gonna be more. Like there's gonna be more clips of Chinoy dragged out where she's gonna say stuff that is still gonna like connect into this general narrative that this person, she's a documentary filmmaker,
right?
And an activist. Like she is an activist filmmaker. And the whole thing, so the thing that irks me and that I wrote again about for Bounding Into Comics is that I like a lot of Disney Star Wars. I like a lot of it. except for the trilogy of films. I'm really down on the trilogy.
You like the Boba Fett show?
So I can look past some of the silliness to the good stuff that's in there, but no, I've watched the Boba Fett show once when it came out.
Okay.
But it doesn't, it's not like the bane of my existence. I love the Ahsoka show. I pretty like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I love the Mandalorian season 3. Like, I know the narrative is that season 3 was somehow like super bad, but it was fine. I thought it was also still a good season. I like a lot of what they're doing. And then they have these bungles along the way, right? There's been the mess ups with Indiana Jones. There's been the declining box office with every Star Wars trilogy movie. There was the Solo catastrophe, which, you know, was a good movie that got kind of like the raw end of the stick. I want to see them succeed. I really do. I love Star Wars more than more than most things in my life.
You've built so much around it.
Yeah, I've this is like a huge part of my life. I love it. And nobody can take that away from me, even the House of Mouse. And look, when Bob Iger goes and does a bunch of press interviews early in this year and in the beginning of end of last year, talking about how they need to get back on track and stop focusing on messaging and get back to entertaining, I was like, oh, all right, message received. We're making progress. But that's one hand at the top of the power chain. And then on down the power chain to Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, and the picking of Chinoy. You're just like, one hand doesn't know what the other is doing, or the hands don't care, and that they're just lying when they're on television so that they can appease some stockholders. This is evidence that they are not course correcting. And again, I have a reputation for being quite friendly to Disney through their handling of Star Wars. That's because I'm being sincere in that. Like, there's been a lot to like, but they're lying. They are deceiving when they go on CNBC and say one thing and then do this. And it's not good. It's got to stop. I want Star Wars fans to move back towards a state of being like, this is exciting, and we're somewhat united in this as a fandom. But maybe those days never existed. Maybe that's just a fantasy. I'm a prequel kid. I grew up in the early 2000s. Gen Xers were mean to me for liking the prequels. Like, we all remember this, right? Like, George Lucas raped my childhood. Jar Jar Binks is the death of Star Wars, and Anakin Skywalker, and Jake Lloyd can't act, and bada. We were all there. And I've even read articles and watched videos of like people who were like super, like, news coverage from the 80s of people who were super ticked about Return of the Jedi and came out of the theaters hating it. And, you know, like, it's not like there's never been division. It's always been there. I guess I long for the utopia. Maybe the utopia by nature just doesn't exist.
Well, I do feel like there's something to be said about trying to recapture something for people who are now in their 30s or 40s or 50s that they originally sort of encountered when they were in their, 10s or teens or whatever. And like, my dad showed me the original movies, and when we went to see The Phantom Menace, the first thing that the comment that I remember of his was like, yeah, those pod racers, they didn't make any sort of engineering sense whatsoever. Like, that was the first thing.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that makes me want to put my head through a wall.
But
like, the bombers don't make sense in The Last Jedi thing.
Yeah, but like,
oh, like bombers dropping bombs. I'm like, my God, you are.
But then when we went to go see, what was it, The Force Awakens? We saw all the sequel trilogy ones together, and like, after each of them, basically our sort of response was like, it was okay.
Yeah.
Even The Last Jedi, which sort of in hindsight was like, that didn't really work for me. But we walked out and was like, meh, fine. It was something to say.
It didn't destroy your life?
No. No. And then, but the last one was sort of like, well, that was kind of really, that also was completely forgettable.
Yep.
And no, I think a lot of it is once they divorced from Lucas, there's just less there for the like actual movies. There's always been extended universe stuff, and that's always been sort of a variety of qualities. I remember Shadow of the Empire, and that was a huge thing. I still have the original hardcover book somewhere in my parents' attic, and that was a big deal, and that was super cool.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about kind of fandom with you. And we're going to bring on, in just a few minutes, we've got a guest in the waiting wing here to come on and talk a little bit about fandom creators. But just to round out this topic, I just want to share something that I was reading yesterday, and I remembered as I was looking into this Obaid-Chinoy kind of saga around the REY movie, and this desire by this director to want her audiences to look in the mirror and see how wrong they are when they watch her movies. And I was reminded yesterday that this is not how persuasion works. There's this essay by C.S. Lewis. It's titled 3 Ways of Writing for Children. He wrote this, of course, decades and decades ago when C.S. Lewis was with us. And in that essay, he writes out how to write exciting stories for children and readers while also having them be worthwhile. And because, he knows that you want to entertain, but you also want to edify. And he talks a little bit in this essay about how to approach messaging and teaching morals. And in the essay, Lewis questions an author, or he mentions questions that an author might ask themselves, which is, what do kids or what do my audience need, right? Like, what do they need in their lives that I can give them? And then what do kids or the audience like? What do Star Wars fans enjoy versus what do Star Wars fans need? And he goes on to say that we shouldn't be asking that question, because asking the question, what does my audience need, doesn't lead you to a good moral. He says that that is a too superior of an attitude, right? A higher than thou attitude about storytelling. He says the better place to start is, what moral do I need? What moral do I, the storyteller, lack and need in my life? And that is where you begin a story. Let the pictures tell the moral. Dig deep for a thing in you that you feel is missing, that you are scared of, that you are worried about in your own life, an area where you know you have a darkness, and tell that story. And guaranteed, people will be entertained by it. They will also be enlightened by it. They will not be offended by it, because you're not attacking them. You're not lecturing them. You are sharing an inner darkness and recognizing that your inner darkness is probably in other people. And once people see that you're willing to share that, they're willing to open up a little bit themselves. But not when you do this, I want them to look in the mirror and see how wrong they are. It's a delusion, and it doesn't work. And that's not good storytelling. If anybody ever wants to go read this essay, it is on, you can just find it on Google. It's C.S. Lewis, 3 Ways of Writing for Children. And it's really, really great on balancing entertainment and edification, quality in your storytelling and your messaging. Because again, when you come to a movie with the sole purpose of doing activism, story dies on the cutting room floor. And that's not what we want. All right. We're going to move on to another
Ken,
fun
can you just say it was 3 ways of writing for children?
3 ways of writing for children. Yeah.
I am going to read that because it sounds great.
It's really good. I think you're a comic book writer and artist. I think you'll really like it. I highlighted the crap out of that thing.
And I mean, I do think that goal of finding that inner darkness, and like what he lays out, that is what I have tried to do in my own work, not to just take an opportunity to plug.
Well, that's what Star Wars is about. Star Wars is about the inner darkness. It's about Luke going into the cave and seeing that he could be Darth Vader. It is about that self-righteousness.
Is that what that scene means?
It's about that self-righteousness dying on the floor. All right, let's move on to another topic of self-righteousness, Star Wars fandom creation. We're going to be joined by a guest, a little bit of a sparring partner tonight to talk about this issue. My friend Pete, over at ATG Cast, around the galaxy. Pete.
Around the galaxy. How's it going, Stephen? How are you?
I always want to say across. I apologize every time I say it.
It's okay. I'll rebrand for you. I do have to say, on my 2024 bingo card, I did not have my first show appearance being on Bounding into Comics this year. So that's
welcome.
This is a big thing. And, well, Stephen, it's all because of you, I have to say. And honestly, for those that don't know, Stephen's been on the show, on my show a couple times. I've been on his show. We both have this great sort of ability to have a conversation about some of the more difficult topics. So when he reached out to me, I said, no, I said, are you kidding me? But no, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have the conversation. And Matt, it's great to meet you as well. Thank you.
Great to meet you too, Pete. That's a heck of a studio you got there.
No, he's got the real deal.
This is it's a closet down the hall that's hidden from my wife that I'm not allowed to do. She thinks it's towels. It's wild. No, but thank you very much.
We all need a room hidden from our wives.
He does that around the galaxy. Does a good show. I've been on there a bunch, and again, we've had a lot of good discussions and reasonable disagreement about Star Wars and politics, because Pete enjoys a good political conversation. My start in Star Wars politics began with the Beltway Banthas podcast. So I started doing Star Wars podcasting in 2015 during the Republican primaries. And I wanted to do like a Hannity and Colmes type Star Wars show, because I saw that there wasn't a lot of willingness for Star Wars pods to like talk about politics explicitly and do it in a way that was like fun. And so I found, a progressive friend who could hang and wanted to do this. And that's kind of like what I built my Star Wars life around. I loved that kind of stuff. And I also did grow up watching Hannity and Colmes. So
I'm so sorry,
with my old man. That was how I bonded with my dad, was watching the O'Reilly Factor with him and then falling asleep during Hannity and Colmes. That's how
it's all coming together here, Stephen. Now I understand a lot more about you. It all makes more sense.
Colmes always had to lose. That's the way that it works. But all right, so I don't even know where to begin, except for before we dive into the Bantha fodder pit. Tell us a quick Star Wars story, just to get to know you, Pete. Because I know like some people in Bounding's audience may be aware of you. You make Disney shill T-shirts and hats.
I do,
and just to stir the pot,
for sure. Yes.
Tell us a Star Wars story. Like what's a good Star Wars memory for you, so that we can get to know you before we tear you apart.
Yes, I'm ready. No, I'm an OG Star Wars guy. I saw somebody in the chat talking about how they saw Star Wars as a kid. I saw Star Wars in 1977 when it was Star Wars. You can do the math. I'm of that age, but in the 90s. During the special editions and during the prequel releases, I was a freelance writer for Lucasfilm in doing their fan publications. And so I attended the premieres of all three of the prequel movies. There are some fun stories to tell there one day. And that was kind of my thing. And then in the 90s, after the early 2000s, when Star Wars kind of went away, I kind of went away from a lot of that stuff. And then in 2018, I decided that, so I'm of the generation that had an issue with the prequels and have since come around. I finally understand and see it as the full story.
Roger.
You got my dude over there. But I was I had always looked at sort of The Phantom Menace as a film version of a good book that didn't quite get it just right. So for no good reason, to get my writing chops back, I wrote a fan fiction novelization of The Phantom Menace using today's or 2018's canon. I wrote it as sort of a political intrigue story. And then I got pulled into social media, and then I was part of the fandom wars. So I'm a veteran of the fandom wars, and I have been running Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show, since 2019. And next week, we're launching a brand new live show on Thursday nights. It's an hour before your show, so people can come and watch us and get the ATG side, and then they come over here and watch the BIC side. So I think that's
Are you on the record encouraging people to watch Bounding into Comics?
Oh my God! Please
just can
mark the tape.
Clip that video, send it to Twitter. It's so funny to me because I come from the world of political commentary. Like that's actually my day job is working in political media, and seeing how political media has merged
Mhm.
with Star Wars fandom and creator spaces and Twitter, you know, kind of feuds and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's all the same thing. It's like the same proxy battle, just filtered through opinions about Jedi and smugglers.
Which
And
bums
it's
me out.
yeah,
I'm with you, Matt.
it is
Yeah.
a bummer.
Yep.
It is a bummer. I mean, I don't like that. And another person who says that they don't like that, but probably helps contribute to it in his own special way, is Star Wars theory. So I want to talk about the Star Wars theory controversy from last week. I'll just do a quick recap of what happened. Star Wars theory. Very popular channel. I think was he broken like 1 million subs or something.
He's got 3.3 million subs. He's second
Jesus
only to Star Wars themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the biggest Star Wars content creator voice out there without question.
Yeah. So, and yeah, he does a lot. This is his entire like lifestyle and livelihood. He does a bunch of channels. He also has a Dragon Ball channel, which I hugely appreciate because that's like my two fandoms is Star Wars and Dragon Ball Z. And so I whenever he like talks, like he pivots sometimes between talking about Star Wars and talking about Dragon Ball. I'm like, this guy like gets me. Like
again,
like,
learning more about you, Stephen, and the picture's becoming clearer here.
Yeah, and so it's just always been funny to me. And he's also clearly a Canadian conservative. I mean, it's just it kind of oozes from a lot of his different opinions and his attitudes about stuff. But what he's going to do is he's been making fan films. He's been making animated films for Star Wars, and he announced that he was going to be doing his own Mark Hamill deep fake sort of built, you know, AI deep fake fan film for Luke Skywalker, like an animated series of stories for Luke Skywalker, because he doesn't like what Disney has done with Luke Skywalker post The Last Jedi, which, you know, he's entitled to that opinion. And then, you know, I guess the stuff hits the fan. You know, people who don't like Star Wars theory kind of go out and they go, wait, you can't do that. You can't use somebody's likeness for a fan film. To which, I don't know. Like, I kind of sat back and tried to be impartial, and I was like, I think all people do is like do this at home and then post their stuff on YouTube. I mean, for Pete's sake, the guy who made like at home his own Mark Hamill deep fake fix of the Mandalorian de-aging of Luke Skywalker, like his video went so viral that Lucasfilm hired him. Nobody gave him permission to tweak around with Luke's face and practice the art of deep fakes from his house. I feel like this is part of creator culture. What do y'all think? Matt hates this.
Yeah, you go first, Matt. Yes.
Okay. I mean, a couple of the things I you know, for me, one as an artist and who I make my own comics and stuff like that, I do find I don't like the incentives, which is to basically constantly be making things based off of other people's stuff. And that's the only way you can get attention. And so the incentives are not to make something new and to put the amount of resources and money that he's putting into these things. It's not to make something new. It's to just basically make more Star Wars. And
it's kind of what he's saying Disney's doing in a way, right?
Yeah. And so that sort of just boggles my mind as a creator. Like, I don't like doing like fan art because it doesn't give me anything.
Would you be willing to do illustrations for my older public fan fiction from when I was 16?
Yeah. But so that's one thing. The other thing that does bother me with all of the deep fakes and the AIs, and we're not putting this, I know that this isn't going back into the genie's not going back in the bottle with all this, but it does kind of terrifying me that we are fighting against, if you are creative, you are in competition with not only everyone who currently is working, but everyone who existed before in time. So like, if it's James Earl Jones's right to sell his voice print, but the fact that they can just use him in perpetuity for forever is, I think, a little bit odd and ghoulish. And it sort of also stunts, for Star Wars, it stunts that the creativity. I think that it seems so odd to me that they are everyone could be free of the Skywalker saga and could go off and do, I think what people responded to in Rogue One and in Andor is that stylistically they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I want to loop in Pete here as well, just to get his take on this. But I think Star Wars fan culture is participatory. It is a feedback loop between fans and Star Wars, whoever is governing it at any time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so. First of all, it's really, I'm with you, Matt, 100%. I think first of all, Star Wars Theory was incredibly tone deaf, not having paid attention to the fact that the actors and writers were on strike for half the year, essentially a quarter of the year, fighting this particular issue. That said, fan films are what kept Star Wars alive after the prequels, right? So I'm a fan of fan films. I don't know if you've all seen Troops. Troops is like one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars fan films. StarWars.com used to have a fan film competition. But I think part of the difference here is that this is not truly being done to as a gift to the fans, as he likes to remind everybody how much of his own money he's putting into this. This is to build his channel and to deep fake Mark Hamill, to use an existing actor without his permission, which is part of the story as well. I don't know that it's right or wrong. It feels very wrong to me. It feels like a lack of awareness, and what it does is it creates this sort of situation where it literally shows that he has thrown off. He doesn't really care about Mark Hamill's feelings on this as much as he claims to. It's the very small part of his 12-minute apology video. He's doing this to raise his channel, and he became more divisive when Disney came after him for his Disney film from I believe it was Disney Music. That was when the divisiveness of his channel started to really happen, was when he started to see that there was an opportunity to monetize that. And so doing this film and saying, I'm not going to monetize it, of course he's not, because legally it would be blown apart. But it's doing a lot to raise his channel, and it's also an opportunity for him to once again spend high percentages of his videos talking about how much he dislikes the Disney era of Star Wars, which is fine.
I
know I said a lot of different things there, but
yeah, no, but I definitely agree with you on the ethics of this, and it is such a murky thing, because I don't like Kent, I'm a libertarian, so I don't believe in that there is the government solution for it probably doesn't work and is too big. But there is going to be a reckoning with this technology.
Yep.
And I don't know what that's going to be, but it's an issue.
I find this outrage to be incredibly selective. From the amount of Star Wars fan films that I can watch online, where Tamura Morrison's likeness has been ripped off by a million fan films to do anything involving clone troopers, to previous videos that Star Wars Theory has done where he's incorporated Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu. Nobody cared. And nobody wanted to try to get in touch with Samuel L. Jackson's publicist. It was just because Mark Hamill is accessible on Twitter, and the subject of Luke Skywalker.
But Steven, don't you think that some of it has to do with the fact that it's been in the public eye? It's been the reason why nobody was able to talk about Ahsoka when it was actually on the air the first time around, because of the writers and actors strike.
Nobody, Pete, just the people who want to curry favor with the studio.
The shills.
We could talk as much as we want.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the same ethics problem with the Samuel L. Jackson bits.
Yeah.
I mean, the first I've heard of it was today when you sent it. So I don't really have a dog in this fight. So mine isn't really about Like, I don't know any of his personality, any of this stuff. It's simply just I'm
personality
just
is
kind
a
of looking at
tornado.
it.
It's his personality is a tornado with
Yeah,
an
but I just as a creator, I just there's something to me that is it's one thing when you're making fan films and you're playing with the toys, but it seems to me to be a different thing when now with technology that it's bizarre because you can do so much, and it's really cool that you can do so much and at a really cost, like cheaper than you ever could have before. The fact that you can make lightsaber videos,
well, we just watched
and you don't look like
Mustafar video.
lightsaber, right? And
We
you
just
don't look
watched
like
that
the
Mustafar
lightsaber
fight
kid.
video. That
You
I mean,
know?
that those people making that Mustafar Clone Wars fight video were just like copying the work of the
Right.
people who took the time to make the Clone Wars characters. Like the people who sat down and designed the way that the Clone Wars Anakin and Obi-Wan would look, that designed Mustafar. These people then copy their work and graft an animated look over it and get 2 million views.
Yeah.
But I think that this is what Star Wars fans do. We make stuff in celebration of it. We also make stuff in rebellion of stuff we don't like. Like all of Star Wars history. And Pete, you've been around longer than me. Like it's
True.
people like not liking something and being like, well, then I will write my fan fiction, my story.
I did it with my Phantom Menace novelization for sure. But it's I also didn't. I don't know. I will tell you, it is to Matt's point. It's a very strange situation, and it's difficult to have an issue with. I think I'm more, I don't know. I think the reaction from him, from Theory himself on it was a little bit more, was more problematic to me than the AI piece. Again, AI piece, as I said, was more tone deaf than anything else. The deep fake things, and that's a very scary thing. I mean, within the last couple of days, I've seen deep fakes of Clinton, Biden, and Trump talking about Epstein, right? And this is that. And honestly, some of them I had to go and do a little research to make sure it wasn't real.
Yep.
That's what we should be freaked out about. But to your point, and Stephen, I agree 100%. Fan fiction is what keeps Star Wars alive. And whether it's Reylo fan fiction or whether it's somebody like me who decided that they wanted to take a different approach to telling the Phantom Menace story, or somebody like Theory who did his $160,000 Darth Vader fan film. That's the heart of Star Wars, where the challenge is where is the line? And that line, because of where AI is right now, is so blurry and to Matt's point, dangerous. Matt's in more trouble than either you or I on this right now.
How's that? How do you see that?
You're gonna get put.
No, not that you're doing anything wrong, but I'm saying like your work. So if somebody loves your work and wants to use AI to replicate it,
yeah, no, it will. And the crazy thing is that with with Midjourney and the way that you can create images, I mean, sort of from a technical perspective, you can create something better than I could. But I do think that there's, I do think that you're missing, and this is a different topic, but you are missing the joy of the process of making.
Sure.
And I think that, I'm of two minds. I think that the whole
is that me?
That's you. I think you've been mid-journeyed. Count Fletzer.
I find the
oh my
I don't know. I personally like fan films seems like such a it's a large investment of time and money. And I get if you've got the time and the money to do it.
So I don't
awesome.
I don't understand. You've said this a couple of times, Matt. I don't understand like the idea. So like he's got a monetized channel, 3 million followers. So
yeah,
he's making bank off that and a bunch of other channels, and he pours his money into demonetized fan film creations. I think that's a virtuous act.
I guess,
like
but make something new.
If you have it, make something
the irony
new.
of it is, as I was,
what do you mean make something new?
The irony of
Star Wars. Don't come up with a new idea.
The people who don't like Disney era Star Wars, and even good friends of mine who didn't love the prequel, the sequels, again, that's another topic for another time. I have serious issues with the sequels and some of the stuff I love, whatever. Point being, a lot of people like Star Wars Theory refer to that as fan fiction. This is Disney fan fiction. What he's doing with his Vader film with this is Disney type fan fiction. It's no different. And so it's so, and I mean, there's the whole part which we haven't talked about where he gatekeeps and calls fans opportunists. He's the biggest opportunist. He's making, depending on which website you go to, some websites clock him in at over 7 figures from his channels a year. That's
all right.
opportunist.
Cider, roll the opportunist clip at about 3 minutes 10 seconds. Let's get this video if Cider's still at the wheel here.
I'm sorry, is it this video we're looking at right now, or
yeah? Could we get Star Wars Theory's video here and play his video at about 3 minutes 10 seconds?
You say it and he just does it. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I need somebody like that.
Yeah.
I need a Cider.
I don't deserve Cider. Cider was just gifted and he does amazing work. I wouldn't know.
I'm usually have to be the producer. That's awesome.
I don't.
When I was a kid, is literally the last 20 minutes of Rise of Skywalker.
The 90s and 2000s. We're not talking about these new age Star Wars fans that Disney has amassed.
What does that even mean?
It wasn't really all that cool to be talking about Star Wars all the time. It was more of like a hush-hush secret thing, but only amongst your friends and nerds and geeks, real geeks. Like now you have like e-girls being like, I'm such a nerd, I'm such a geek. It's like,
okay, all right. E-girls.
Finish it. Wait.
Oh, finish it. There's more.
You're an opportunist.
You're an opportunist.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Pete, do you know what an e-girl is?
I have done the research, and
you think
I was planning to use a filter of some sort.
The cat face, the porn tongue, and the fake freckles.
Uh-huh.
Like
Pete had to do the research on the computer in there in that
E-girls are
closet.
not female fans. When someone says e-girl, they're not talking about women. They're talking about a specific
right. But this
is anime girl.
I listen, and I recognize that, and I think the challenge really is around the fact that he's got a history of not supporting the female fandom, right?
Let's talk about the statement. E-girls, opportunists. I don't take e-girls online very seriously, especially when they say they're such nerds.
Do you follow a lot of e-girls, Ken?
I'm trying to think.
Careful, Steven. Careful.
No, what is this show? There's this show. Oh God, I don't even know what it's called. Where everybody sits around a table, and it's like these two bodybuilder dudes, and they just bring on e-girls from OnlyFans.
The Whatever Podcast.
The Whatever Podcast. The Whatever Podcast is my exposure to e-girls.
You are in so many deep holes of the internet that I've never even seen.
If one of these girls tries to do the yeah, I'm such a geek, yeah, I love Star Wars, I'm gonna want some more information besides I grew up on anime culture.
Well, the information that you're looking for is her OnlyFans.
And it's going to cost you.
Oh Lord! I'll stop there.
No, but I think it's that sort of fine line. I'll put it right up there with people who defend what he says by saying he always tells people, don't be rude, be respectful, and does nothing to stop the people who go after the women who are Star Wars fans. And so I think it becomes a hair splitting situation, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's calling any fan, frankly, an opportunist after you just spent the previous 45 seconds or whatever talking about how Star Wars meant so much to him and how it helped him through very difficult times, and then dividing off a group of people saying no, you're not a real fan. You're an opportunist. Look, I'm not defending
Yeah,
e-girls.
I don't like that stuff. I don't like labeling.
So it's the gatekeeping that this just falls into a lump of other things that he has a history of doing, of gatekeeping, of telling people who like Disney era Star Wars that they're not Star Wars fans, and telling them that the stuff that Star Wars that's coming out now is not Star Wars. It's disrespectful. It's gatekeeping. And what happens is this kind of talk inspires people to go after women who now are online responding to this, because as you know, it tumbles and it continues to grow and more people get involved and more people comment. And I mean, there's a friend of mine who sent me screenshots of people going after her and calling her all kinds of names because she's a Star Wars fan. And opportunist came up multiple times because this guy with 3.3 million subscribers, the biggest voice in the fandom, is okay with creating gatekeeping and throwing words around and separating that fandom. And people who look, my 14-year-old daughter is a sequel fan. She loved Rey from day one. That's her entry to Star Wars. My 11-year-old son is a Clone Wars guy, Clone Wars and Bad Batch. Both are Disney era Star Wars, but they've gotten their entry into Star Wars. I don't care where it comes from. Are you going to tell me that somebody who's a fan of I would have told you back in 1999 that if you're a prequel fan, you're not a Star Wars fan, because that was the way we all felt at that moment. And so any form of gatekeeping, whether it's e-girls, whether it's prequels, whether it's Disney era, that's bullshit. The gatekeeping from the guy who has the largest voice and inspires the aggressive behavior of the people who fall into the darkest portions of his fandom, and they're out there.
This is kind of where I don't watch a lot of Star Wars. I really don't. Like I usually watch when there's a controversy, and I go back.
I'm the same way. I used to love him. I did. Back in 8 years ago, I was a big fan.
One of the things. Oh yeah, I didn't know that. One of the things I don't understand about the way that people behave online, right, is that Star Wars Theory does like this video. He kind of goes through talking about his, childhood as a Star Wars fan, talking about like how he's never going to give up. He's pouring his own money into this stuff. He's not fazed by this kind of criticism. And then also in the Mark Hamill video, he's explicit. I didn't time mark this one, but he's like explicit. Don't go after Mark Hamill. Keep to yourself. Let's keep making great stuff on this channel. But people don't listen. People don't listen because people online are psychotic.
And it's not his job. I mean, honestly, so here's where I'm frustrated. And honestly, look, I know I'm not going to change minds, and I know I'm not going to change his mind. But here's what I would love to see. And this is why I get frustrated with Star Wars Theory in particular. And there's a lot of other people out there that are they're the dark side of the fandom menace kind of stuff. And also, I will say, you do have you have people who call me shill because the way I approach my fandom is not to talk about the stuff that I don't like. Why would I do that?
I get called a grifter every now and then because I wrote a Star Wars book. Like,
see,
apparently, like writing
you shill.
Writing a book. Which, like,
Steve, where can people buy that book?
Yeah, hey Ken, it was a little blurry. You didn't hold it in front of your face.
You gotta get.
I've got the blur feature on, but yeah, it's like I don't like it when people draw that line. So what I'm gonna cede to you is that calling like any sort of group opportunist in fandom does sort of draw a line that is completely like, all right, just people you don't like are grifters. Right. I've been called a grifter simply because I have opinions and I took the time to write them.
And I'm the other side of the coin because I'm a shill apparently because I talk positively about things I enjoy.
It's on your hat, Pete.
It's on my hat, and I'm leveraged, much like his new show is called something grift, which is interesting. So, but the point that I wanted to make is, if I could appeal to Star Wars Theory, if I could speak to him, I would say you have 3.3 million subscribers. The Star Wars fandom is honestly, it's in danger, right? We know that. We see that when we look at every. It's in a bad state. If you love Star Wars, you'll stop creating the divisiveness. I use this all the time. I think Stephen, you and I might have even talked about this. I'm a Metallica fan. I was a Metallica fan since probably Ride the Lightning, their second album, and I have not liked anything they've done since after reload. So I'm talking very specifically for Metallica fans. So, but there's the latest era, the last 20 years, I haven't enjoyed. But I would never tell somebody who loves their new album that they're not a fan. I'm thrilled that they're still relevant, and I don't have to listen to it, and I don't.
You know who I tend to hate?
Who?
Metallica fans.
Oh,
because they always want to gatekeep against my favorite metal band, Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh man, dude, let's do another podcast because I love them too.
Avenged Sevenfold, that's not real metal.
I would argue that Avenged Sevenfold saved metal to a degree, but that's another conversation. And I like them a lot. But where I'm going with this is like, use your 3.3 million subscribers to help save what you want. The second thing is, and he could do that by, I'm not saying say you like the Disney stuff. If you don't like it, just, that's great. Just don't.
But I don't know. I like you're appealing to like my heart here on this one, like to use your audience for good. But what do you even mean? Like save, like what are they gonna do besides?
Well, don't use the 3.3 million followers.
Lightsabers.
No, well, I mean, don't use it to continuously. I mean, if you watch that video, the 12 minutes, and I watched it when it first came out, and I watched it again today because we were talking. There's so much of it is him talking about how much he doesn't like what Disney has done to Star Wars. What's the point of that? If you I would tune into Theory on a weekly basis if he talked about the things he loved and made it a place where we talked about, where he talked about things like, hey, here's what I loved about this, and here's what I liked about that. Now, again, I know that doesn't sell. That does not sell anymore. We live in a media environment where CNN and Fox News make their money because of the world that we live in, and it's ugly. So again,
I'm being transgressive even on this stream by like, we spend a lot of time talking about stuff we enjoy, because there's a lot of channels that you can go to get people, you know, screaming about everything. And
so you've turned me around on the fan film thing, because I feel like that's the only positive thing, that like eventually you run out of back matter to basically discuss, right? And then now all you're doing is reacting to whatever's new that's coming out. And if we've already established that, at least in my opinion as well, is that anything that didn't have Lucas's hands on it is effectively fan fiction. And this is my opinion.
Yeah.
I think once you remove the sort of artistic vision of Lucas, and you can debate the merits of Lucas's vision, but it was his baby, and the second that he sold that baby up the river
to the white slavers,
everything else is just it's corporate product in my mind. And so to me, like I there's no emotion, and I don't put any emotion into it as a fan, because it's sort of just,
and you're not alone. There are a lot of Star Wars
leave.
fans, and
like I really enjoyed Rogue One, and Rogue One was a really good product, but like it doesn't mean anything to me in the way that the original movies did, and even the prequels did. And I'm sure that I must have read your writing in the Star Wars magazines when I was a kid, because I definitely got those, and I remember all of the like the run up to the prequels. I remember going to see the what would they call them when they did the re-release,
the special editions? Yep.
And which was great. Like I love that, and that was and that felt like a very positive time. And I think one of the things is that you didn't have to fill like everyday videos constantly.
Yeah.
Like I think that the sort of constant stream is also like just a negative feedback loop, because it's the thing that sells. There's a lot of incentive problems that I think happen, and then 100%. That's what leads to this stuff.
Right. And honestly, if my living was if my living was finding ways to get people to my channel, and I found that something like that works, I mean, honestly, so it's so funny because people will see me make a comment about Star Wars Theory, and I did try to make a New Year's resolution to try to do less complaining about negative people out there. And here I am on Bounding into Comics on January 4th.
Sorry, we're not complaining now.
We're not complaining. We're having conversation. But I think I'm not even sure where I was going with that, other than to say I think that there's while there is this the more that the YouTube algorithm continues to pay off the negativity, the more people are going to do it. My channel, my podcast is where my main focus is. We've done a YouTube channel, and honestly, I don't even want to share the numbers. They're pretty low. That being said, it's funny when people then will look at, when I make a comment about Star Wars Theory, they'll go to my channel and go, he's only got X number of followers. Well, yeah, I mean, that's not where my focus is. I have debated, and one day I'm going to do it, and I'm going to write the book about it. I'm going to create a toxic, negative, all negativity all the time YouTube channel, and I'm going to track it, and I'm going to write about it, because there is money there. And the more you can get people to come in and say, yeah, you're right, that's bad, that's a lot easier to do for some reason, and it's a shame, and that's a problem.
Did you end up reading that book I recommended to you?
I did. I have it actually. Trust me, I'm lying.
Yeah, this is a book I recommend to everybody who wants to understand how the internet works. Trust me, I'm lying, by Ryan Holiday. It explains everything from the way that entertainment culture works, to Twitter, to modern political polarization. It's a really good book. But guys, we've been going quite a while. I think we're gonna go ahead and try to wrap up. Pete,
sorry.
Okay.
No, it's been great. It's been great to have you. I wanted to disagree with someone about this subject, and you are the one I wanted to have this conversation with.
I'll take that in the nicest possible way. But
I think that you weren't expecting to have two people disagreeing with you.
Yeah, that's all right.
I know. Matt betrayed me and shifted allegiances.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here going like, he seems like a kind of nice guy. He's a misunderstood fella, and he likes Dragon Balls. So
well, and I think it's such a complex issue though too, and that's what makes it so challenging. Again, like I said, I never will change anybody's mind. I see Script Trooper in the chat. He and I have sparred online.
What did you call Script Trooper?
I don't know. He said I've called him names, and I'm sure I have. I'll be honest, I don't know what they were off the top of my head. I'm sure he's got the screenshot
call
somewhere.
Him a better name.
Yes.
That's how we raise the discourse.
But I would rather have more conversations like this where we can say the reasons why we're upset, right? If I go on, and this is what happens, I go on Twitter and I go, hey, Theory said something I disagree with, and then I'm out of characters and people are out of attention span. Whereas this is an opportunity to say, honestly, I wish Theory would get back to what he did best, which was talk about things that unified the fandom. I'm not expecting him to be the Jesus of Star Wars and bring everybody together. I'm not expecting that. But I would like him to take a stand against the negativity and the toxicity. And he doesn't need to babysit every single comment. That's impossible. He has millions of comments. But when he sees something really bad, and I'm sure he does, I would love for him to take a stand and say, man, you can't do that. You can disagree. We can look. Rise of Skywalker. I have so many issues with that. But I know people who that is their favorite Star Wars, and I'm never going to go into their mentions and say, you are an idiot for liking that. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you have your entry. So if you see somebody doing something really negative, there was somebody who just today was seen, they identified somebody online who they disagreed with. So they went through their Twitter feed and they said, oh, he's pretending to have been married. And then once they realized he actually was married, they said, well, you could have faked it with a prettier woman or something like that. It was ugly. And it was all about Star Wars. Like, guys, it's a freaking movie. We love it or we don't. And if you don't love what came out, move on.
Pete, it's a religion.
I know it is. I read your book.
And you can tune in next week for my monologue on why Star Wars division can be explained by the Protestant Reformation. But that is for another time.
Your viewers just dropped dramatically.
So many dislikes. Guys, may the force be with you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching Skytalker. We're doing this every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Stephen Kent, the Skytalker. And thank you, Pete, around the galaxy. ATGcast on Twitter, and we've got Matt Battaglia. You need to pick up his comic House on Fire. It's a great piece of art.
Thank
everyone, may the force be with you. We'll see you next week. I have a request that the next one just has to be a montage of Anakin's signature behind the back lightsaber spin. Just over and over and over again.
The whole theme. Yep. Sure. You got it.
Skytalker, presented by Founding into Comics.